Maja John Madden in my 40-degree car in Weslaco, Texas, where a couple of days ago it was 85. Terrible ice storms through Texas all the way to Tennessee, where we started out a couple of years ago. I talk about taking responsibility for the whole planet. And that's a tall order, right? It doesn't even make sense to a lot of people. Bloom where you're planted. Pay attention to what's around you. That's true also. But where we were planted is the planet Earth. And I intentionally started the video even though there were sirens going by. Here we are in the Walmart neighborhood market parking lot. There's the Walmart truck. And my heater doesn't work. Has never worked for a year. Died the week after I bought the car. It's got a wonderful new rebuilt engine. But for a year we haven't had heat, which was more of a deal. Though my dog is back there somewhere. Yeah, I think I see him back there. You can see all the blankets back there that I was under last night. We do have a little space heater that I ran last night and again this morning for a while. How do we identify with the suffering of human people around the world? There's an old adage that says nothing makes the world seem so small as to have friends at a distance. I put up two videos about what I call our xenophobia here. And in one of them, I talk about how 40 years ago, back in Rochester, Syracuse, New York, my ex-wife at the time, and we were pretty estranged from each other, trying hard to be friends for the sake of our son, woke me up to the situation in El Salvador and Guatemala and places in South America where our U.S. government was propping up right-wing dictators that were killing the indigenous people in the mountains. I thought she was crazy to get involved in that when we had lots of problems, each of us trying to move our careers ahead, trying to raise this kid. But she, for some reason, had the vision. I think she was part of a church group there that was focused on that. And I talk in that xenophobia video about how she woke me up, and I ended up caring about those people and ended up actually back in Chicago taking in a Guatemalan family for 6 months, and indigenous people from the mountains who ran from the military that we were propping up because they knew the military marching down the road meant that their village was going to be destroyed and they were all going to be killed on our dime. That was our dime doing that. So that's one reason to care about what's going on there, because we did it. We did it. We were responsible for a lot of that. And I sent that video to her. We don't talk anymore. We haven't talked for a year. And I sent it to her just because it was about her and it was a nice thing. And got a response from her. It doesn't look like she's going to follow up on that. I tried to follow up to no avail. But she sent to me a lovely little memory. She said, our son Terry was in preschool and they were asking for, she was the principal of the preschool he was in. And the teacher told her the story of she had asked kids for a rhyme, and the rhyme that Terry came up with was 1, 2, 3, 4 U.S. out of El Salvador, because she was taking him to demonstrations. So I got one for another part of the world that may seem hopelessly far away, and what difference does that make to us? But I've got friends back there, or related to there. There's a piece on public radio about Myanmar, and the desperately terrible situation there, and how awfully the people are suffering and how the international community seems way too preoccupied with Ukraine and other stuff to pay any attention to how all the people who are drowning in boats desperately trying to get out of Bangladesh. The refugees have gone to Bangladesh, and it's so awful there. They're trying to get away, and hundreds of them are drowning in boats. So why would you care about that, though? Okay, it's a touching story, but I've got a personal hook. I've got friends at a distance. In that same period in Syracuse, I was involved in a Aikido group, passionately involved for a year. I threw myself into it. I never made a lot of progress, but in fact did some things that still amaze me, from learning to be in my body. I was always been a heady writer and intellectual, but Aikido got me in my body, and I did things on the mat that I still don't understand how I was able to do that. That community, it was quite a community around that little Aikido school. The two top students were black. My son is biracial, identifies black. And they loved my son Terry. They really took him in. Deb and Motier were the two top students. It wasn't super organized like the Taekwondo school I went to in Nashville. No colored belts or anything, just black belt. But the teacher of the school was a guy whose name I can't remember this morning. I remember the bride he brought back from Burma was named Gori, and his parents were there. So the story this morning is about Myanmar, and I went, oh, Myanmar, Burma. I couldn't pull up what country it was and had to look it up, Burma. He was from Burma, and he was the sweetest man, slender little man who really knew Aikido. And he would practice solid boundaries. I mean, he was very open-hearted, and the school was all about open heart. But it was a little United Nations there, Latino folks and Asians. If he noticed that one of the senior students or more advanced students was being too rough, because you throw people around in Aikido, you have to learn. Moche said to me once, when you learn your falls, you lose your fear and you start to fly. And I did experience that I could go up in the air knowing that I could come down and not hurt myself. But if our teacher saw that someone was playing too rough with the new guys, he'd invite them out on the mat to do a demonstration, and you knew it was about to happen, because he was going to set them straight and send them aside. So he'd invite some big lug out to demonstrate a technique, and he would flatten them, really teach them a lesson, so he wouldn't do that anymore. It's a beautiful memory, and it means a lot to me. That year meant a lot to me. It really has stuck with me, even though I mostly didn't stick with the Aikido practice. But it made me care, so that when I heard that story this morning, I got all involved and stayed here in the 40-degree car, even though I want to get to a Stripes convenience store and get warm. It was more important to capture that story and make this video, because it's no longer them to me. Myanmar people, that's Burma. That's my friend, who is one of the most impressive people I've ever met in my life, and loving, most sweetest, but tough, sweet and tough guy. And eventually I'll remember his name. But thank you to him, Debbie and Moche. Thank you to you. You made a difference to me, and I think only now am I doubling back and starting to understand and tap into what I learned from you all back in Syracuse. Damn, I'm cold. I gotta get going now. All right, bye.